Hello everyone and welcome to TechZone, powered by Accedia, a professional IT services company providing technology consulting and software development for businesses around the world. TechZone aims to shed light on how technology products are developed through the experience of software engineers, product people, UI/UX designers, and other experts. Each episode covers a specific software development topic ranging from engineering, product, process, quality assurance, or a management viewpoint. Welcome to the TechZone.
Hello and welcome to our new episode of TechZone. Today with me are Silvia, Borisova, and Bozhidar Goranchev, who are specialists in our company. Silvia is a QA specialist and Bozhidar is engineering manager with specialty and a huge background in business analysis. And I am Kiril Ribarski. I'm the QA manager in the company, and today we're going to talk about the benefits of having a dedicated QA specialist at your team. Tell me, what do you think? Let's start first with Silvia, because she has a lot of projects behind her back or under her belt, and she has been quite a significant part of those projects, and she was pivotal to the successful delivery of those projects. So let me hear what you think about having a dedicated specialist from the beginning till the end, or
I believe that when you have a QA within a team, it will be much better if this QA is dedicated to one team, for example, works with one team. Over a period of time, this QA gains knowledge, and he can transfer this knowledge to new people, to other teams, and also it works better. The team works better this way for sure. This is one of the most important parts, that one QA is dedicated to one team. From other perspective, for example, saves a lot of time because it knows very well the processes for the particular company or customer. For example, if you want to have a successful build, or if you want to be on time for a release, or all of those things. And
if I may stop you for a moment, I would like to bring you back a couple steps. Let's first talk about some issues or some major challenges that all the teams face during the whole development life cycle and during the project's life cycle as well. So, from what you said, one of the things that in order to make things happen, you need to have process.
Yeah.
And that process needs to be set up. So another major issue with this is when you bring new people to the team, somebody has to teach them how to do that, how to follow the process and what actually the process is. And Bojo, I think you can share with us some of those challenges in your past.
I think there are two key issues here. So one, as you said, when new team members join the team, they need someone to introduce them to the work. And other than a business analyst, obviously, other than a business analyst, the QA is the person who is most familiar with not only the technical aspect of the project, but also the business logic behind the project, but beyond that as well, with the context, the organizational context beyond the specific project and the specific team, which I think is quite key sometimes, because often the developers themselves, they might not have a view of the big picture.
To be frank,
however,
developers are not the perfect people to carry on onboarding.
They might not want to, they might not want to, but the QA then has that overview beyond the project of the organization, how things work, why the process that you mentioned. So they are one of the people who are most suited to introduce a team member to the team, but also then to work with stakeholders such as the business analyst, such as the project manager, to then make sure that the overall vision of the company is aligned with the projects.
From my perspective, also the QAs and with the help of a BA in some projects, but essentially QAs are the gatekeepers of the quality in a project, in a company, and I think everything starts with the process, because except making sure the product is of high quality, the QAs always follow processes and procedures, and they raise flags when something is wrong and there is some defect in the process.
That's why they like BAs.
Yeah, I was also gonna say that we are like the worst, the worst part before a release or a build or
But
something.
yeah, of course.
So yeah, we're there to make sure that this product is actually working and it's meeting the requirements from the stakeholders, the business, and
Yeah, having a QA or having some processes that make sure you deliver high quality, I think they form naturally. Like, for example, a PR review. A PR review is the first gate of quality, and this is something that's not implied by any QA or any other in the team. It's something that all the developers have to do to make sure the code they submit is of high quality. So this is a small step, but makes a big change in the product overall. So next step is when you have refinement sessions with the stakeholders, where BAs kick in and they help with refining the requirements, analyzing them, breaking them down into smaller tasks, and feeding all this information to the developers.
Here what I think is also important, you said that when you don't have a QA within the team, and this way when you have those refinement sessions or whatever meetings with the stakeholders and the business, the developers are mostly focused on the technical part, and they don't, not that they don't or they cannot like completely see the other part, but the QAs are for sure more confident in that, and they're more this is their job, not only to be sure of the testing and the quality, but also to make sure that this is what the end user requires and what what will be their needs for everyone. So I think it's better when you have a QA within the team, and on those meetings and even before those meetings, a QA can talk with the BA or with the stakeholders, and if this QA is with this team or with this company for a long period of time, he has knowledge of the business, of the products of the company, so he knows how to. He has this perspective that gives him more or bigger overview of what is required for this product or project, and can raise some concerns or questions, or for example, I did that many times, and we changed some requirements, or even how this solution will be built or something like that, because I remember that like 3 months or 6 months ago we did something similar, and they are listening to us, and they're in my project they're happy that there are QAs within the team. We're working great together, and they can see that it's beneficial for everyone. So yeah, this is what I think about it.
I completely agree. So that part of that you mentioned about the requirements and the way that the QA's input can even change them. So as a business analyst, QAs are my best friend, because when you go into
Same here.
because when you go into a refinement session, right? So you can't. So a BA walks into the meeting with some requirements, and you can't expect the developers to be aware of the entire big picture, the business process behind the change, the customer needs, etc. Whereas the business analyst is on one hand, and on the other, the QA is then aware of all of the different edge cases that even the BA might have not have thought about. So when I walk into a meeting with requirements, the challenge I most often get is from the QA, and that's great, because then they point out things that I might not have thought of, and then we complement each other that way, because on one side we have the customer needs, and on the other we have things that even the customer might not have thought about as potential use cases and edge cases. So it's great.
Well, yeah, this actually is part of the static code analysis. which is an essential part of the QA work. And what you do there is go through the requirements, go through designs, and try to spot any errors or issues with those requirements. And having a QA who is so knowledgeable about the domain, it makes easier to spot those issues right there at that meeting, and as you already said, challenge them and clear them out. So yeah, that's a huge benefit because it saves a lot of time and effort, because otherwise they would have spotted later when it's developed, and it will be too late because now the developers have to fix it. Sometimes stakeholders expect the developers to test themselves their solutions, but as you already mentioned, their focus is very narrow. It's primarily on the piece of work they are doing at the moment. They don't take into account how it's going to fit in the bigger picture. That's why they don't deal with integration and system tests. They only do the unit test because they have to make sure the piece of code they did actually works. But they don't apply any business logic in it. Yeah. They just make sure that it returns, let's say, the same data type that is expected, etc. But having a QA who is profound in the domain makes everyone's job a lot easier, because they even can help the developers. There are often times where while developing a solution, the developers communicates often with the QA and asks him many questions. Is this okay? Is that okay? Can you check before I commit? So yeah, it's beneficial.
It's also a question of accountability, I think, because obviously someone needs to take that responsibility. If, as you say, developers are sometimes expected to test themselves, but that's like, it's essentially marking your own homework. So that's why, for instance, on the PR process, which you mentioned as the first step, you have someone else take a look at your code and essentially validate it. And then the level above is a QA comes in and takes a look at the big picture, and make sure that it's validated against requirements. So that piece is something that I find benefits from an external perspective, not just a developer's perspective, which, as you said, might be very narrow.
Yeah, but this covers the setup where we have a dedicated BA as well in the team. But what about when we don't? When there is only a QA?
Which you shouldn't do.
Yeah, it's not advisable to do that, but yeah, we have such cases.
I think that oftentimes the QA then becomes, well, it becomes a version of BA, or at least they take a lot of their responsibilities. So then, because the client would then naturally just go to the QA, because they're the person familiar with the business processes and the business logic. So they can often weigh in on requirements and on customer needs in ways that are very beneficial to the actual
and both speak the same language.
And both speak the same language, yeah.
Yeah, because how many times in your career you had the case where the stakeholder is actually technically well familiar with all the technologies, and usually they are just business people who say what they want to achieve, and it's up to the team to do that.
And as you said, both PAs and QAs like processes. So there you go. That's the person who then drives the team and makes sure that they follow that process.
And Silvia, have you been in this role?
Yes. Yes. So within our team, we have a BA, but when he's, for example, on leave or something, or he's very busy with another project or something like that, sometimes he helps other teams as well. And because we are friends, so he asked me to help him sometimes, and actually it's very interesting for me because it's something new to learn and to see from his perspective what he's dealing with, on a daily basis. So, I mean, I cannot say that it's that different, because it's not like the same as QA, of course, but for me, it wasn't that different. I mean, you're dealing with requirements, which we also do with the stakeholders, with how a user story should be written, and everything around that. Also, communication with the team, again, on a daily basis. So, it's. I mean, it's. If one person can do that, it's the QA.
I guess you guys find that it's also helpful for your work then afterwards, because if you're familiar and if you've come in the process early and you're familiar with the business needs, then that helps to inform your test cases
definitely,
afterwards.
Yeah, and I think also that when you have a QA for certain time in the team, I believe that this person will always have the desires to participate in more meetings, to learn more before the project starts and before the developers are involved with the new project, because this way he can raise his concerns, his questions, and to have discussions with the BA. And I mean that's what I do.
Yeah, okay.
And for me, it's very beneficial, and I believe that everyone.
And what happens with that relationship when it comes down to a bug or a feature?
Yeah, that's the interesting part.
It's usually a feature.
Yeah, it's a bug.
Yeah, but for me, the interesting part is when you have to act in both roles. You know, you're a QA who has to fill in the shoes of a BA in the project, because you don't have this resource. When this happens, how do you decide whether it's a bug or a feature? Because you're trying to be somehow objective, but you know, from your point of view, if it's not written in the requirements, then it's a bug.
What I do always is to communicate with my team, because I trust them. I work with them for several years now, and this is for me, this is very beneficial, that I know that they're not gonna say something because they're developers and it's from their point of view, or like the technical point of view, but they're saying it because this is the, how to say, the better answer for the whole team. I mean, we take a decision like a team always. And I think that this is the best part, to trust to your team and to communicate with them for everything. And yeah, I think that's the best thing. But also, if we cannot make a decision, I talk with other stakeholders, other people, or and I make sure that we check the documents and stuff, and to make sure that it's the right decision.
I was about to say that's the other side of the coin, because on one side you talk to the team, and that's a technical perspective, and then on the other is the stakeholder and the product perspective. So if there's a dilemma, if something is a feature or a bug, then essentially I find it useful to take a step back and go into the shoes of the customer or the end user. So is this beneficial to the customer journey? Is this beneficial to the product itself? And so that often, I think, informs the decision. And if it does seem like it could be of value, then it's a feature.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I think some BAs are trying to slip in some feature that has been missed. And it was always part of the requirements.
We don't like scope creep.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think that about narrows it down. But let's talk about the last quality gate, which is actually the sign off from a QA. Yeah. And what's the part of a QA?
I believe that the QA has the biggest part before the release to production. The QA has to prepare every document, the handovers, the test reports with all the bugs which were found during the project or the sprints, all of the test. I mean, depends on the project, because every customer wants different. How to say, different diagrams, or all of that stuff. But yeah, the QA is responsible for all that, so he needs to prepare everything, all the reports, all the documents, and also, of course, the testing. It needs to be done and verified. And actually, it's sometimes it's hard if you have some bugs and they're not resolved, and you need to make a decision if this is going to be a real problem or a big problem to go to production this way or not. In my case, I had like both. I mean, sometimes we don't. I mean, everything is resolved because before we go to production, and the other The other thing is when you have some bugs, but they're not that critical, or even one time we had like critical bug, but we had to discuss this with higher management and all of the stakeholders. And and I mean, it happens. It happens, but you need to be like aware of all of the things, and you need to make decision about that.
Do you find that there's a tension between? So she find the
Definitely,
critical
yes.
bug. So
Yeah.
so like with the developers, but also with stakeholders.
With the developers, no, never. As I said, at least in my case, I communicate very well with my team, so I'm confident. And when I say something, it's done or not done, they're 100%, behind my back. So that's good.
That's good.
But we had like many discussions with the stakeholders, or so the business, and sometimes they don't agree with us, but we try to like think of different ways to explain that this decision which we took, it's the right one for this situation. So for now everything is fine. So. Yeah.
Okay, and I think that we need to highlight here that all the documentation that a QA is responsible for actually makes it very easier for the business analyst and the product owner to make a sound decision whether something should go into production or not, whether they are ready or not, and this sets the expectation. Whether you're about to get a lot of complaints about support tickets for bugs, or you're fairly confident that your product is with a good enough quality, and you can, as we say, deploy on Friday afternoon and go into the weekend with
Confidence.
With confidence. Yeah, I think this is important to be emphasized. Because usually the developers are not capable enough to bring that confidence to a higher level, and make sure that all the stakeholders, the concerned parties, can have this informed decision, let's say. Usually developers, they did their part, they're confident that they did it, but whether it's working as expected, they can't answer this question. That it's working according to the requirements. It's working according to the specification, but
As expected versus as intended.
yes, exactly. Does it make any business logic? Does it make any sense to the business that they can't answer this, and it's not their job? Actually, it's not their job to do that. And sometimes expecting the developers to do the testing and verifying if something is developed as it should be brings unnecessary attention, stress. To the team, because they can't answer this question when you force them.
I've experienced that very often, like, because for the developers, as you say, like, they look at the requirements, it's working as per requirements. Sometimes there are like nuances to the requirements, which as a business person, you'd expect someone to be familiar with that nuance, but they don't have to be, and they often aren't. So sometimes they just code it in and are like, oh, it's working, and it's not, but like, you need to give them enough context. And I think that's what refinement sessions are really useful about as well, because it's also an opportunity for you to tell them, okay, these are the requirements, this is what we need to do, but this is also why we need to do it. So giving them that context is useful, but then obviously that's why QAs then are so valuable, because they walk in with that entirety, with the entirety of that context behind them. And I think that's why it's also really useful for them, and actually critical for them, to be part of the project from the get-go, and not just walk in midway or at the end. That sometimes happens.
Yeah, there's a huge debate about it. Usually companies tend to bring QAs midterm when there's some developing, and it always happened, and they expect them to test it quickly and get up to speed with the domain and the product very quickly, but it can happen. It's very rarely that a QA can get around for, let's say, a week in a new project when there is already a product developed there that sometimes miss a lot of documentation, because, let's be frank, usually the documentation is not enough.
Yeah, you expect someone to be an expert who then tests the product and judges whether it's fit for purpose but
Yeah.
you need to become that expert first, and you often don't give that time to the QA.
The other thing is that the developers are very focused on the technical part, and they don't think, let's say, outside of the box. And when a QA comes to the team during like a sprint or in the middle of the project, it's very hard to do some even analysis. And even if you ask questions like all the time, they cannot give you the same answers or the answers that you're seeking for. And that's why I believe that if you're in the beginning of the project, it's very easy because you can raise your concerns, questions, and you can have those discussions with the business. And it will be very easy this way. But the other way, it's very complicated for a QA, and you cannot even promise the same quality. That's for sure, because you don't have the same time to gain some knowledge on the product. And if you don't have that, I don't know how you can write like a good test cases, or you can think about something apart from the basic things that you need to cover.
We already narrowed down the couple of issues that are lack of processes, lack of domain knowledge, where a QA can step in and fill that gap. And if it's a QA that's been long enough in the project, plays a significant role in this. Another issue is having quality gates, making sure that every step you take into the development brings enough confidence for the stakeholders to sleep well during the weekend. Another benefit of this, as we just discussed, is having the documentation prepared by the QA. Everyone who's new to the team can jump in, read, and have a call with the QA and have an onboarding session where he can tell him about, he can walk him over across the whole domain, basically. If the QA has written tests or tested all the different areas of the product. That's why it's important to rotate them and not create silos within the QA team, or having a dedicated QA per feature or a couple of features. And because the knowledge doesn't flow, it just stays there and it's conserved.
One more thing is the time, because as we know, in software projects, time is the most valuable thing. Everyone wants to do a project for as fast as possible. And when you have a dedicated QA, you save like a lot of time to the team, because first the requirements are more clear. That's for sure. If something is not like during a sprint or something, if even the developers are not sure of something, when you have a discussion with the QA, he can help. That's for sure, because he knows better the documents. He knows better the product and the project. So can assist with that. Also, you mentioned a couple of times about the preparing of all of those documents, and if you have like experienced QA, he can do that faster, and this is essential. Saves time for the team, so the team can pick up the next project, and also save time for the stakeholders, the business, the customers. So it's beneficial for everyone.
Yeah. Now I have a question for you. How many times in your career you had a case like one of the banks here in Bulgaria got the production message, Collie, did you get it? Because when you have QA, this rarely happens.
Yes.
Usually everything is tested before before going on production or patching the prod issue.
Yeah, I think that we've seen enough of even the social media is breaking down globally, which is a huge problem for them, which again means that they're not having enough QAs maybe within their teams. And yeah, we have if you look at the history, we have so many examples on different areas where major mistakes were happening because of that. But yeah.
No, that's true. Sorry.
No, I was done.
No, I was about to say that's why also going back to the collaboration between business analysts and QAs, it's so important to have this started from the beginning of the project again because of that quality first approach. Because at that stage, you can bring the quality mindset to the requirements definition process. So it's not about waiting for something to show itself in production, let alone testing it in production. That's a different matter. But it's you have that hashed out at the very beginning. You know what your vision is. You know that it's foolproof, and that if you have all the use cases covered, all the edge cases covered, and then you walk into development with the complete picture in front of you, you're always going to get changes. But without having a QA from the very beginning, working with the BA, it's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I think one of the major issues before every stakeholder is making the decision whether you need a BA and a QA. It's important because their value is invisible.
Yeah, but also different.
It's different, yeah, but it's invisible. And what most stakeholders want to see is the product, the result. That's why they tend to bring more developers in the team, because they can see the output of their work. While with QAs and BAs, it's harder to spot those.
Yeah.
For me, the best approach is having both a BA and a QA. I'll tell you why. A developer would never ask me whether I'm ready with the test plan. They don't care about it. They won't ask where it is. Can I see it? Can I see if we've missed anything? Are we testing all the relevant stuff? Is the scope okay of the test? So for me, BA and a QA are always complementary to each other.
Absolutely.
And when you have one without the other, the team struggles, because there are deficits that someone needs to fill. And if you have a QA and a BA in the team from the beginning, it's quite some pair. They are quite a team, and they know the product very well, the business logic, the business requirements. They know how things work and what should be the end result of this. The QA can also provide with some valuable suggestions about improvements, whether in the user experience or in the flow of a certain feature. So yeah, for me, this is something that it's worth considering when even when starting a project, because as we already discussed, having these two roles from the beginning, it's important because those are the people that help you layer the foundations of a high quality product.
Yeah, because you essentially have all perspectives to the product mindset from the get-go, and that then permeates throughout the entire team as well.
Yeah.
So the developers get that from the QAs and the BAs, and I think that's not something that's something that people underestimate sometimes. But the product mindset is also really important, and if you don't have a BA or a QA, then it's much more difficult for a technical team to attain that.
Yeah, and it's the same with the automated tests. You need to make an investment in the beginning that pays out later. While I think maybe most of the startups, because they have limited funds, they try to get as much as possible from the funds they currently have. That's why they bring a lot of developers, and then realize at a certain point that it's a complete chaos and nobody knows what's being developed, what's the state of the features that are being delivered, and etc.
Is it working or not?
Is it working or not? They have a lot of issues in production. Yeah.
And automation also is something that brings invisible value, because you won't realize you needed it until you actually need it. So we've had
It's like an insurance.
Exactly. So we've had times where a bug comes up in production, and we're like, okay, fine, an automated test would have actually caught this, but then we didn't have time to write them and execute them. So it's and even though the QA suggested them, so it's absolutely something. It's indeed an insurance, and the QA themselves, because that's another argument I've heard sometimes from clients. So they're like, oh, the development team is really good, we rarely have issues. Yes, but unless you have a QA, you won't know that you needed one until you need one.
Well,
because if a critical bug goes into production or a critical issue, even if the developers are really, really good, they sometimes miss the big picture, and sometimes the bug versus feature thing. Sometimes the developers might not even think that something is a bug.
We have plenty of examples in the real life where huge corporations or products that are worldwide widely used. There's one critical bug that emerges in production, and from there it's just straight down.
Yeah.
For those companies, they lose a lot of clients, a lot of investors, and actually the clients, they start to doubt whether this their product is good enough. It can be.
Yeah, and the other thing is you have a product, you have like a team or teams without QAs, and they build a good product. They don't find like major issues or something like that. Then you release the product, and then the end users are starting, to find something because no one thought about,
You're essentially missing entire user journeys.
Yes, exactly. And this is the job of the QA, and then you need the QAs, but you hire them, and you need many months until they know the product and they test everything and it's released again. But during that time, you're losing customers, which is
you need someone
essential for the business. Yeah,
you need someone to step into the customer shoes,
Mm-hmm,
and QAs do that from every use case and edge case, and
well, they trying to design those edge case tests. And as we joked before, we gathered here with Silvia. It's never enough writing test cases. They are never enough because there's always more tests that you can write. And when you think you're done, you can bring some false positive tests, false negative tests, and making sure all these edge cases are covered. But in the world of QA, we have our 7 principles. I'm not going to tell every one of them, but one of them is that you cannot be 100% sure that you have discovered all the bugs. There's always one that you haven't come across, and potentially an end user might come across it because you cannot think of a setup that they have in order to hit that bug. It's important to make sure that you're covered as much as possible, but you can never be too sure.
Yeah, not just adhering to the requirements, but making sure that the requirements are actually complete.
Yeah. Well, I think that sums it up. We're at the end of today's episode. Silvia, Božo, thank you for participating.
Thank you.
It was really nice talk. And for our viewers, thank you for watching us, and please subscribe, follow, hit that bell, as you already know. And see you next time. Stay tuned.
This is the end of the episode. If you enjoyed it, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other audio platform. Subscribe to our YouTube channel via the link in the description of the episode so you can explore more, and stay tuned for all the video content we produce. Thanks again, and goodbye from us.